to run you through a few tricks in Illustrator just to keep you going with your lantern designs. So I'll just answer a few questions that people have had in class. So let's run through some stuff. So I'm in Illustrator, so obviously we want to create our files in Illustrator. The main reason being that if we look at something in wireframe, we can see that the objects are made up of these paths, these lines that we can see here. So these lines are important because that gives a precise path that the laser cutter can follow. So we need to make sure that we're following those, creating those sorts of lines so that they can work for us. Okay, so it's time to, let's create a new file. So I'm going to go new. And probably for this, it doesn't really matter too much if you work vertically or horizontally. We can change it when we drop it into the template. But one thing that I always recommend is that you start out in millimeters just to make things nice and easy. And I like to use RGB color these days. I think that's probably the way to go. So I'm going to go create my file. And here we go. I've got a brand new file here. That's cool. And I can start working. Now, I wanted to show you image tracing for starters because quite a few of you are finding images and tracing and working with them. So I've got this one here of some kelp. And one of the things I like to do with my image trace is when I do the trace is keep it quite physically big on your page. Because of the way the resolution works, it can make things a little bit better. So I'm going to come up here under Window and I'm going to come down to Image Trace. So it's all alphabetical here in Window. Image Trace, I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to click on the preview here. Now sometimes you need to click away and back onto your object if this stays grayed out, but it's working fine for me now. I've got preview on. And what I can do is one of the most important things, I've got this set black and white view tracing result, and I've got this threshold. And you might have noticed that this kelp had some grey patches in the middle of it. I can adjust what turns black and what turns grey by just tweaking this threshold value. So if I pull it right down, it gets rid of a lot of the grey values. And as I start to push it up, it starts turning those grey values into black values. So that can be, worth experimenting with. And you need to think when you're doing this, are you looking for just the hard outline to cut into the shape? Or are you looking for a wider bit of material to etch the black into? There's a few different things we need to think out as we go. One of those is remember that if we cut a complete circle, that object will fall out of our material when the laser cuts it. So it doesn't matter how detailed the interior of that is. If the outside line is a red laser line, then it's going to fall out. Okay, now some other ones that are worth messing with. This noise is quite good. So you can see if I turn the noise right down, it's picking up little bits in the kelp. And as I start to turn it up, it starts to filter those out. So I could keep going and get rid of more stuff. Okay, and the higher the values, the more it filters those out. So that's a really good one to mess around with as well. I'm going to keep it maybe just sort of around mid-range, something like that. Okay, it's good. So I'm pretty much deciding, yep, this is coming along nicely. Another thing, if you can't see this, you fold down the advanced tab here, is turn on ignore white for this image. And what that'll mean is that we only get black material, we don't get white islands and things as part of our print. So it makes things a little bit cleaner. So once we've got all this done, it tells us a bit of stuff down here. We've got 36 paths, 522 anchors. That's all good. It's done it all for us. What you have to do is you need to come down and go click on expand, okay? So, and object and fill, yep, that's good. We'll just expand both of those. What that really means excuse me, is that the image is kind of in limbo until you hit expand. Once you hit expand, it creates it as a piece of artwork and we can start to work with it now. So if I go Command Y or Control Y if you're on Windows, this shows us the wireframe of our image, and I can zoom in and you can see here that it's all made up of these nice curving lines which are all mathematically defined curves which our laser cutter can just follow along really nicely. So I'll go Command Y again, back to our normal view. So that is good, okay? So that is how you trace an image. It's really a great way to go. Once you've got your image, it's grouped, so you can work on it. If you need to get access to individual parts of your object, you need to select this and you need to come up here to Object, Ungroup, and you ungroup once, and then you actually have to, let's just check, Object, Expand, it's not, yeah, we'll ungroup a second time. For some reason, Illustrator likes you to ungroup twice. There are hotkeys for that if you want to use them, but that's pretty good, okay? So we're looking good. Our object is, that's looking fine. So let's have a look at a couple of other tricks. If you're doing like some sort of repetitive pattern, you might like to duplicate an object, come up here to Object, and we can go Transform, Reflect is a good one, and we can reflect it on the vertical. So it's really about which direction, what axis it reflects on. We'll go OK. And then we've got a pair of these, and we can sort of start to build up maybe some kind of repeating pattern that, that forms part of your design. So that's good, okay? I think we're moving in the right direction. A couple of other things to know. When you've got an object, remember that it's got its fill color over here on the left, fill and stroke. Okay, so the fill is the solid panel here, and the stroke color is this square outline shape. If we want a color on that, we can double click, select the color, okay, and we'll start to see that it's got an outline around it, but the outline's really thin, so I might just turn it up so we can see it. Okay, that's good. Fantastic. Now, another thing I should have said that's worth doing is your workspace. I like to have it in Essentials Classic. That's really good. It'll give you everything you need. Now, a lot of panels come out of the side here. If ever you get stuck and it gets all twisted up, you can go Reset Essentials Classic, and it will just reset all the panels back to their original location, and it'll make it nice and easy. Okay, so that's good. Now, once you've got your bits and pieces, you can go to, I've got online on the tree, there's an Illustrator template that you can download. It's really hard to see on here, but there's actually the shapes of the, a set out here in the template, which has got the lid, and you'll see the sides, and everything is all here ready to go. So you can actually start laying your work out onto these. Now, what's worth knowing as we go along is if I look over on the side here, it's got some really important stuff. And here we go. Right, we've got a fair bit of talk here. So all shapes must be outlines only, no fill colors whatsoever. Check that no lines are doubled up, because you don't want to do that, otherwise the laser goes over itself twice. And you need to use color swatches included in this document. And these are the ones here, okay? So if we want to do a full cut, we can use red, and we need to use this specific red that's actually specified here. If we want to do interior cuts, we need to use the magenta outline. So the boundary cuts, it cuts last, basically. The interior cuts, it cuts first, and bits fall out of it. The boundary cuts last, and it keeps all the pieces in place so it can do the other work. We've got dark engrave, so that's a black outline. We've got light engrave is a light grey outline, And we can see these are 0.1 stroke. We've got dark score, light score, and material boundary. Okay, so we've got quite a few different types of cut that we can make the laser do, but we have to specify exactly this color. Okay, so we have to take it off the color swatch. Has this got, I don't think it's got color swatches included, but you'll find that these colors are actually the colors of the text. So we'll use those when we need to. We'll basically be able to copy them and add them into a swatch. I'll show you how to do that at a later stage because I've got this locked off at the moment, okay? So this is basically everything that you need to start laying out your document. And I think that's pretty much all the tips that you would need. One other thing, maybe just for people if they need a little bit of extra help, navigating within the screen can be a little bit of a pain for some systems. So it's worth using, if you like it, this navigator. So the navigator brings up this window and it helps us to move around, and we can also use it to zoom in by clicking on these mountains. So that's a good bit of work. Okay, I like it. Other things to know about is these two arrows, and there's a little bit of confusion between these two. So the black one, we click on the black one and it selects the whole of an object. And if we click on the white one, it actually selects the individual points and lets us select individual nodes, and it makes that process a little bit easier of reshaping objects. So I can use my white pointer, it's called the direct selector. I can grab a point and I can drag it out. But if I use my black and I click on something, then it moves the whole object around as one. Okay, so they've got slightly different usages. Now sometimes if you go to use this direct selector, it'll hide the individual control points. So if you go Command H or Control H if you're on a Windows machine, you'll see now that it's lighting up those points. I can drag them out and get access to reshaping them. That's cool. I'll just undo that. So that hide command, that's really important. Also Command Y or Control Y on a Windows machine, that gives us this wireframe. And the wireframe is really cool because it lets us see if there's any bits hanging around, anything's overlapping, those sorts of problems. So there's going to be a fair bit of troubleshooting your files as we go along, especially once we start moving into those colors and making sure that everything's correct. But we'll deal with that in another video, I think. So I think that'll give you a lot of the tools that you need to get going with. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.